Something important is moving toward you right now, and it has been traveling toward you for much longer than you realize. Before you keep listening, pause for a second and become fully present. What you are about to hear is not random. It is not luck. It is not something your mind simply invented. For a long time now, you have been picking up on something underneath the surface. You may have questioned it. You may have tried to push it away. You may have told yourself you were overthinking small moments, but deep inside, a part of you never stopped paying attention. A part of you never stopped feeling that something real was there. Your inner voice has been speaking softly for a long time. Not through big signs or dramatic events, but through tiny feelings, quiet moments, and gentle nudges that lingered even after everything else faded away. Even when you tried to ignore those feelings, they stayed. Even when you turned your focus elsewhere, they came back. Even when logic told you to let go, something inside you kept watching. Very soon, someone may say words that confirm what you have already sensed for a long time. And when that moment comes, you may not feel shocked. You may not feel surprised. Instead, you may feel something much quieter. You may feel relief. You may feel recognition. You may feel a calm knowing, like something you already understood has finally stepped into the light. Because the truth is, you felt it before there was any proof. You felt it before explanations existed. You felt it before any conversations ever happened. You felt it before there was anything solid to point at. There was simply a knowing inside you, a quiet awareness that remained present. Sometimes it showed up as a pull toward a certain person. Sometimes it appeared as a sudden thought that arrived without reason. Sometimes it felt like a pressure or warmth in your chest that you could not fully explain. You may have noticed moments when a name popped into your mind without warning. You may have caught yourself thinking about someone at odd times. You may have realized that certain memories lasted longer than they should have. And no matter how hard you tried to push those experiences aside, they returned. This is because intuition does not operate like logic. Logic demands proof. Logic wants certainty before it believes. Logic needs clear answers. Intuition works in a completely different way. It picks up on patterns before the conscious mind can understand them. It senses movement before anything becomes visible. It gathers quiet information from small details that are easy to overlook. Because of this, intuition often knows things long before the mind can explain them. Stay with this, because what comes next matters more than you think. For a while, you may have doubted yourself. You may have told yourself you were making things up. You may have convinced yourself you were creating meaning where there was none. You may have searched for reasons to dismiss what you felt. You may have wondered if you were overthinking ordinary moments. You may have questioned your own perception many times, but even with all of that, the feeling never fully went away. It stayed somewhere beneath the surface, quiet, steady, patient, not forcing itself forward, not demanding attention, just waiting for the right moment to become clear. And that waiting has lasted longer than you realize, because what is approaching did not begin recently. It did not begin last week. It did not begin suddenly. This has been building slowly over time. While you were focused on your daily life, something else was unfolding in the background, quietly, gradually, almost invisibly. Someone has been carrying thoughts they never fully expressed. Someone has been holding back words they wanted to say but could not bring themselves to speak. Someone has been dealing with emotions they did not fully understand. And this has not been easy for them. Many people think silence means nothing is there. But often the exact opposite is true. Silence can mean something is too important to say carelessly. Sometimes people stay quiet because they fear changing something valuable. Sometimes they stay silent because they are afraid of being turned away. Sometimes they remain quiet because they are afraid of being misunderstood. So instead of speaking, they wait, they hesitate, they think, they observe. And while they hesitate, time keeps moving forward. This person may have thought about you far more than you realize. They may have noticed details others missed entirely. They may have remembered small conversations you considered unimportant. They may have paid attention to your moods, your energy, your presence. Things that seemed small to you may have been deeply meaningful to them. Moments you forgot may have stayed alive in their mind. Words you barely remember saying may have stayed with them for a long time. More than once they may have come close to speaking. More than once they may have felt ready. More than once the words may have almost come out. But each time fear stopped them. Fear is powerful. It convinces people to wait. It convinces people there will be a better time. It convinces people that silence is safer. It convinces people that tomorrow will be easier. But tomorrow often turns into another tomorrow, and then another, until silence becomes heavier than the truth it hides. Your intuition may have already sensed this struggle. Even without clear communication, even without direct words, something may have felt unfinished between you. There may have been moments when the connection felt stronger than the actual conversation. Moments when silence felt meaningful. Moments when a simple interaction stayed in your mind longer than expected. You may not have fully understood why, but part of you noticed. Part of you recognized that something was unspoken. And unspoken truth does not vanish. It continues moving quietly beneath the surface. It keeps searching for expression. It keeps waiting for the right moment to come forward. That is why certain connections are hard to forget. That is why some people stay in your thoughts even after they are no longer around. That is why certain experiences do not fully fade. There is often something unfinished that remains in the background of your awareness. And maybe that is what you have been sensing all along. Not fantasy, not imagination, not wishful thinking, but a quiet awareness of something not yet fully revealed. Now something is beginning to shift. The energy around this situation is changing. What once felt stuck is starting to loosen. What once felt blocked is beginning to move. The hesitation that once felt permanent is becoming weaker. And the reason is simple. People can only carry unspoken truth for so long. Eventually, truth becomes easier than silence. Eventually, expression becomes lighter than suppression. Eventually, speaking becomes more powerful than holding back. And when that moment arrives, everything can change in a very short time. Sometimes with only a few words. If this message is already stirring something inside you, take a moment to notice that feeling. Sometimes a message feels strong, not because it is giving you new information, but because it is pointing to something you already sense deep down. What you are beginning to understand goes beyond a single confession. It is not only about another person. It is also about you. It is about your awareness. It is about how often you have felt things before they became visible. It is about how your inner perception has been working even when your mind was unsure. Life is not preparing to surprise you with something completely unknown. Instead, it is moving toward confirming something you have already been sensing for a long time. And that difference matters because what this person is realizing is deeper than simple emotion. They are realizing that what they felt never fully disappeared. They are realizing that distance did not erase connection. They are realizing that silence did not end what was still active inside them. They may have tried to move on. They may have tried to convince themselves that it was over. They may have focused on other parts of life, other responsibilities, other distractions. But the feelings remained, the thoughts remained, the questions remained. And carrying all of that became heavier than telling the truth. That is why this moment matters, not only for them, but also for you. Because unfinished situations affect both sides. Even when nothing is being said, a part of your attention can remain connected to what has not been resolved. A part of your awareness can remain tied to what has not been understood. And now something in that connection is moving toward clarity. When the truth finally arrives, something begins to clear inside you. the atmosphere around the situation starts to change in a noticeable way. What once felt heavy and confusing slowly begins to shift. The uncertainty that once took up so much space in your mind starts to dissolve, and in its place, something valuable begins to return to you. Your clarity comes back, your confidence comes back, your trust in yourself starts to rise again. It may feel quiet at first, almost subtle, but it is important, because sometimes the most important changes are not loud or dramatic. They are steady and deep. Keep listening, because this part changes how you see yourself. This moment can feel like a kind of emotional release, as if something inside you that was stuck is finally moving again. And within that movement, you may begin to understand something very important. Your intuition was not misleading you. Your emotional awareness was not a weakness. Your sensitivity was not a flaw that needed fixing. Instead, it was a form of perception. You were noticing something real, even when you could not fully explain it. You were sensing patterns before they became clear. You were feeling shifts before they had words attached to them. You may look back and realize that you were sensing things before they had a clear shape. You were recognizing a truth before it had language, and many people go through life ignoring this inner sense. They doubt themselves. They dismiss their instincts. They assume that only visible evidence can be trusted. Only what can be proven or shown is real. But life often teaches a different lesson over time. Sometimes awareness arrives first and understanding comes later. Sometimes the heart recognizes a reality before the mind can explain it. And sometimes you simply know something is off or something is changing even before you can logically explain why. That is why this kind of moment carries so much importance. It does not only confirm what someone else feels or says, it also confirms something within you. It confirms that your ability to sense and understand was active all along. If you think about everything you have experienced recently, you may start to see a pattern. The emotional growth you have gone through, the lessons in patience you have learned, the moments of uncertainty you had to sit with, the times you wanted answers but could not get them, and the periods where you had to let go of control even when it felt uncomfortable. None of those experiences were wasted. Even if they felt difficult at the time, they were shaping something inside you. Each experience was preparing you. Each moment was helping you build more strength within yourself. Each challenge was teaching you how to remain steady even when the future was unclear. Slowly, you were learning how to stand on your own foundation without needing constant reassurance. You were learning how to find peace even without immediate answers. You were learning how to trust yourself again, step by step, even when things felt uncertain. Because of that growth, you are now able to receive the truth from a different place inside you. Not from desperation, not from fear, not from emotional dependence, but from stability. And that shift changes everything about how you experience clarity when it finally arrives. When honesty finally comes forward, it is important to understand something clearly. Honesty does not automatically create a perfect outcome. Truth does not guarantee a perfect beginning or a perfect ending. What honesty does provide is clarity. It replaces confusion with understanding. It replaces assumptions with facts. It replaces guessing with awareness. And once you have awareness, something very important becomes available to you. Choice. You become free to decide what happens next. You are no longer reacting to guesses or imagination. You are no longer filling in missing pieces in your mind. You are no longer searching endlessly for hidden signs or meanings. Instead, you are responding to what is real and what is directly in front of you. And this is where a deeper kind of strength begins to show itself. Real strength is not about controlling other people or forcing outcomes to happen in a specific way. It is not about trying to make life follow a perfect plan. Real strength is something quieter and more grounded. It comes from seeing clearly and then acting with self-respect. It comes from staying steady regardless of what happens next. It comes from trusting your own worth even when situations are uncertain. If you are listening to these words and feeling emotion rising within you, it is worth paying attention to that feeling. Not because it is predicting the future, but because it is revealing something about your inner world. Emotion often points toward what matters most to us. It highlights what deserves attention. It shows where our heart is invested even when we are not fully aware of it. If instead you feel calm while hearing this message, that calm also has meaning. Genuine truth often creates peace rather than panic. When something aligns with what you already know deep inside, it can feel strangely familiar. Not dramatic, not overwhelming, just quietly familiar, like something clicking into place after being missing for a long time. And if this message feels familiar to you, it may be because your intuition recognizes something within it. It may be because it speaks to something you have already been sensing for a while. It may remind you of thoughts or feelings you could not fully explain before, but that were always there in the background. As this moment moves closer in your life, there is something important to remember. There is no need to force anything. There is no need to rush answers out of fear. There is no need to create pressure in places where patience is still needed. Life often unfolds at its own pace, and understanding arrives when the timing is right, not when it is forced. Allow things to unfold naturally. Allow people to come to their own understanding in their own time. Allow honesty to arrive when it is ready to arrive. Because truth that comes naturally carries a different kind of strength. It feels real. It feels grounded. It feels lasting, not temporary or forced. When it finally appears, you may realize something important. Your intuition was not only sensing connection or emotion, it was also sensing timing. It was sensing that certain truths could only become visible when the right conditions were in place, when both people were ready to face them. And readiness changes everything about how truth is received and understood. As you continue moving forward, there is another layer to this experience. The biggest shift may not actually happen in the situation itself. The biggest shift may happen within you. After truth is spoken, you may notice a quiet sense of calm spreading through your life. Thoughts that used to feel loud may begin to soften. Questions that used to repeat in your mind may start to lose their intensity. The need to constantly analyze everything begins to fade slowly. This happens because clarity has a strong effect on the mind. Uncertainty creates tension. Unanswered questions create pressure. The unknown demands emotional energy. But when understanding finally arrives, that pressure starts to release. You may feel lighter. You may feel more present. You may feel more connected to yourself again. You might even notice that old memories start to feel different. Situations that once felt confusing may suddenly make more sense. Conversations that once felt incomplete may reveal a deeper meaning. Even silences that once felt painful may begin to feel understandable in a new way. This does not pull you backward. It helps free you from carrying emotional weight that no longer needs to be carried. From that point forward, a new chapter begins in your life. A chapter built on awareness instead of confusion. A chapter built on honesty instead of guessing. A chapter built on choice instead of emotional longing or uncertainty. That kind of foundation changes the way you experience everything. When you are standing in clarity, you no longer feel the same need for constant reassurance. You no longer feel driven to analyze every message or interaction. You no longer search for hidden meanings in every pause or silence. Your nervous system begins to settle. Your mind becomes quieter. Your heart becomes steadier. Even if questions still exist, they no longer feel threatening. They no longer control your emotions or shake your stability, because now you are standing in something stronger. You are standing in truth. And truth creates a kind of stability that uncertainty can never provide. You begin to understand something very important. You can move through uncertainty without losing yourself in it. You no longer feel the need to control every outcome. You no longer feel responsible for forcing clarity into existence. Instead, you trust yourself more deeply. You trust your ability to handle what comes next. You trust your timing. You trust your judgment. And because of that trust, life starts to feel different. There is less pressure, less urgency, less fear. You no longer believe that every answer must come immediately, or that every question must be solved right away. You begin to understand that some things reveal themselves only when the time is right. This realization does not just change how you see one situation, it changes how you relate to yourself. You start to respect your intuition more deeply, not as something mysterious, but as a quiet form of intelligence that has been guiding you all along. You begin to notice how often it has helped you before, how many times it warned you, guided you, or pointed you in a direction before your logical mind could fully understand what was happening. You start to see that it was never absent. It was always there, working quietly in the background, helping you navigate what you were going through. That awareness creates a quiet kind of confidence. It is not loud. It is not the kind of confidence that tries to prove itself. It does not need approval from others, and it does not depend on anyone agreeing with you. It is a confidence that grows slowly through experience, through reflection, and through learning to trust what you feel inside. This confidence comes from recognizing that your inner voice deserves attention. It comes from understanding that what you feel is not random or meaningless. It has value. It has weight. And when you start treating your inner voice with respect, something begins to shift in the way you move through life. Pay close attention here, because this is where everything comes together. As this confidence grows, it starts influencing every part of your daily experience. You become more aware of your emotions, even the small ones that you used to ignore. You start noticing when something feels right without needing proof. You also begin to notice when something feels wrong, even if you cannot fully explain why in that moment. Slowly, you stop dismissing your instincts just because other people do not understand them. You realize that not everything needs external confirmation. Some things are known internally even when they cannot be explained clearly to others. You also begin to depend less on outside validation. The need for constant reassurance starts to fade. You are no longer as afraid of making decisions on your own. You start trusting yourself more with each step you take. You trust yourself to handle challenges when they appear. You trust yourself to notice opportunities when they come. You trust yourself to recover when things do not go as planned. This trust becomes one of the most valuable parts of your growth. It does not appear all at once. It builds quietly over time through small decisions, through mistakes, and through moments where you choose to listen to yourself instead of fear. You also begin to understand something important about patience. Patience is not weakness. It is not inactivity. It is strength in a quiet form. It is the ability to stay steady while life is still unfolding, even when answers are not clear yet. You start seeing that silence does not always mean nothing is happening. Sometimes silence is part of a deeper process. Sometimes things are developing in the background, even when nothing is visible on the surface. You also realize that people often need time before they can express what they truly feel. Words do not always come immediately, and truth itself sometimes needs space before it becomes clear enough to speak. Through this, you also learn that rushing rarely leads to real understanding. When answers are forced too early, something important is usually lost. Clarity that is rushed is often incomplete. Growth that is rushed often feels unstable, and truth that is rushed may not be fully understood. Real understanding cannot be forced. It arrives in its own time. It becomes clearer when the mind is calm enough to receive it, not when it is pressured to produce it. As you move forward, you begin to accept that there is no need to hurry your life. You do not need to reach conclusions before you are ready. You do not need to define everything immediately. You are allowed to take your time with your thoughts and feelings. You are allowed to sit with uncertainty without rushing to escape it. You are allowed to listen to yourself without interruption. You are allowed to choose what feels aligned with your values instead of what feels pressured, and you are allowed to protect your inner peace even when the outside world feels uncertain. This stage of your growth is not about proving anything to anyone. It is not about convincing others. It is not about winning arguments or being right. It is about understanding your own experience more deeply. It is about respecting what you already know inside yourself. It is about learning to live with more honesty than before. And as this honesty grows, something begins to shift. You realize that you are no longer standing in confusion the way you once were. You are no longer waiting endlessly for answers that may never come in the way you expected. Instead, you are standing in awareness, and awareness changes how everything feels. It does not remove uncertainty completely, but it changes your relationship with it. As this awareness settles deeper into your life, another shift begins quietly. It is subtle at first, almost unnoticeable, but over time it becomes clearer and harder to ignore. You begin to notice that fear does not control you the way it used to. The fear of losing something becomes weaker. The fear of rejection starts to lose intensity. The fear of being misunderstood no longer has the same power over your decisions. Instead, you become more connected to yourself. And when you are connected to yourself, everything feels more balanced. Your emotions do not rise and fall as sharply. Your thoughts become more organized. Your reactions become calmer and less impulsive. You stop reacting to every uncertain moment as if it is a threat. You stop assuming the worst immediately. You stop carrying emotional weight that does not belong to you. You begin to understand that many of these experiences were not only about another person or a situation. They were also about discovering yourself. They were about slowing down long enough to actually see who you are when everything external becomes uncertain. This process teaches you about yourself in a deeper way. It shows you how you respond under pressure. It shows you what you truly value. It shows you what remains steady inside you when everything else feels unclear. Even moments of waiting had meaning. Even moments of doubt carried lessons. Even moments of hope taught you something about your own expectations and desires. Every part of the experience shaped you in some way. Every challenge strengthened your emotional awareness. Every difficult moment helped you grow more grounded. You became someone who can face truth without avoiding it. You became someone who can stay steady even when emotions feel strong. You also became someone who can choose clarity instead of confusion. This does not mean you never feel uncertain. It means you no longer stay stuck inside that uncertainty for too long. This growth stays with you. You may notice that your conversations begin to feel lighter. You may notice that your relationships become less tense. You may notice that situations that once overwhelmed you no longer affect you in the same way. This happens because your inner world has become stronger. You have built a foundation inside yourself that does not collapse easily. You no longer need constant reassurance from others to feel stable. You have learned how to give yourself that stability. You also no longer need endless explanations to feel at peace. You have learned how to sit with what you know even when everything is not fully explained. And this changes how you experience every relationship in your life.